Welcome back. It's Tuesday, March 26th. Market's closed, and we're going to take a look at some of the major stocks that are trading right now. Some of the ones we've been trading in the Raw Stocks Discord, some of the favorite stocks for market traders in general. We're going to look at SMCI, QQQ, SPY, NVDA, Meta, Apple, and we're going to look at AMD today. AMD is a stock that I traded. We had a nice 20% gain. Called out in the Raw Stocks Premium Discord, link in the description below. So let's just go ahead and jump right into the charts, and we can take a look at what we were looking at during the trading session. So we got SMCI pulled up. We were talking about this breaker block. I did a video on why I went short on SMCI. Now that position is negative currently. It is recovering, but we went a little bit deeper into that breaker block than I expected. I was looking for a minimum consequent encroachment. I entered in the, near the beginning of the breaker block. You can see over the last, day, 2 days, basically, we've pushed deep into that breaker block, and we've continued to find support in that breaker block. Now, that trade started to look pretty bad, but then we started to see some sell-off. So it looks like we've topped on SMCI, and I am looking for some selling. Definitely these 1 hour, especially this 1 hour, bullish or bearish displacement candle that pushed us under the 20 period moving average. And then we started to see a little bit of like a after hours, just small pushback up. But I'm looking for more downside on SMCI. If we get it, that put is going to go probably well into the money. If we can run a test on this breakdown candle from the 1 hour on the New York Open on Monday, if we could push back down, we definitely would have like a bit of a micro head and shoulders look here on the 1 hour chart, right? And then maybe we just push down and find support. If that happens, that put's going to be, like I said, well in the money, and it will, be in significant profit. And at that point, I'll just close it. I don't care to ride it all the way down. I do have profit targets, again, back at, 897, 819, 717, 614, right on the way down. You can see we have kind of our wave structure going here. This was the predicted wave structure that we'd push back up into the breaker. Like I said, we went a little bit higher. I'm going to leave these lines on because these are the predictions I made. This was a prediction I made before we saw price actually go, right? And now I'm looking for price to deliver down to those targets, right? We've already, if we look back from the beginning of that wave structure, we traded back to optimal trade entry, our golden pocket, whatever you want to call it, right? We came back down. We hit a 62% extension, and then we've traded back up near equilibrium again into that breaker block that I said I wanted to see hold. If this mitigates price, this breaker block is also a mitigation block, and then we'd be looking for, again, a run back to the old low, then potentially symmetrical swing at 819, 820, right? And then maybe even all the way down to the order block, right around 800, and then we got deeper, which is at 1.5 standard deviations, 2 standard deviations, using our Fibonacci tools. If you don't know how to use these Fibonacci tools, I have a great video in my Trading View playlist that I created that explains not only how to use the Fibonacci tool correctly, but also my custom settings that give you not only the 61.8, the equilibrium of 50%, right? But I also give you the 70.5%, which is the optimal trade entry level. So if you don't know how to use that, check out the video in the playlist. It's called Fibonacci Tools or something like that. Very informative, not a long video, but would be extremely helpful in your trading. That's what I got for SMCI. Let's jump over to QQQ. QQQ, we got the 20 period moving average. I'm going to start to add these on because I know there's some retail traders that watch these videos too, not just smart money concepts. So we can use the 20 period moving average, as a confluence to some of our smart money concepts. So on QQQ, we see that breakdown that comes end of day, right? A lot of our other stocks, we saw that same breakdown. It was just a market sell-off. Obviously, there was some, push down across the board, maybe some taking the risk off the table, something like that, But we also see similarly using our fib tool, push down, back up to our golden pocket, optimal trade entry range. Okay, we came back down, we hit the 27% extension, we popped back up. Again, another opportunity to go short, back up in this equilibrium premium price range. We get a double top there, right? And then we push down, we break down through the 20 period. We see that nice sell off. We did not take the new low. I do anticipate that what we're going to see is that we're going to see a little bit of a push back up, maybe to 445, 446, something like that, back up towards that 20 period, right? And then I'm looking for us to deliver down into consequent encroachment of this fair value gap. For those of you who don't know what consequent encroachment is, it's 50% of any blocks that we're talking about. So in this case, we're talking about a fair value gap block, and consequent encroachment is at 50%. It's going to come in at 440.61, give or take. Right at that point, we'd be at a 62% extension. We could also look for price to come all the way down to symmetrical swing. I don't think it'll all happen all at once, but it certainly can. And at that point, there's a bit of a consolidation range. We might find support there. We might find support in that fair value gap. At that point in time, I'd expect that we'd be pretty far off the 20 period. I'd say that we'd probably come up and test it. If we can't break above and start to head back to new highs, we're coming down to test the order block at 434.40. Okay, so be on the lookout for QQQ to start breaking down if we don't push back up above that 20 period and head to take out these equal highs back up at 447.5. Jumping over to SPY. These are all on the 1 hour chart, by the way. Jumping over to SPY. Again, we got the 20 period moving average up. We saw that same late day sell off. Okay, we have that's an old fair value gap. Let's go ahead and take that one off. But what we also can see on the 1 hour chart, if you were watching this, we see a small inverted fair value gap on the 1 hour time frame. I bet you on the short time frame, there's also an inverted fair value gap. But when we inverted that and pop back up, there's your opportunity to take a short on the 1 hour time frame. And that could be, a day trade. That could be, multiple days out. Either way, you get that nice dump down into that fair value gap, right? Again, we're seeing a bit of a rally, just like QQQ. We could likely see this pop back up to the 20 period, then deeper down to consequent encroachment, all the way to close that fair value gap, something like that. Could take us all the way down to 517, 516. If we give up that, right, then we got the order block down below about 509, 510. At that point in time, I'd expect a pretty sharp bounce if we got all the way down to that order block. Don't anticipate that happening, but definitely looking for support to be found in this fair value gap and then potentially pushing up again to an all-time high. Still tracking 530 to 540, somewhere in that range. 2 standard deviations of a larger fib move on a daily time frame, and I am looking for that eventually to push up to that level. So really just, again, watching for price to rally back down and then ultimately run back up to an all-time high. Now, NVIDIA, we're on some shorts, and it's not, or on some calls, sorry, 1,000 calls was the goal, was in it on this push up. Looks like it's a fail to deliver. When we fail to deliver on an old high, we're going to recycle back down to build momentum to make that push up. Okay, so what we're looking at in these calls I got, they're a little bit longer dated. They're not till mid-April. So, what we're looking at is that we saw this push up, right? We failed to deliver. I'm sure it baits some, bears thinking we're going higher. I was in it back here, didn't take the exit in profit. Okay, we come back down. We look to find support, maybe down here in this order block. We could go a little bit deeper. Okay, and then look for price to push back up at least over the new high. At that case, the calls would be in profit. If we break down below this order block, at that point in time, well, I would anticipate we'll see a bounce off of it. And then at that point in time, we really got to clear this 1 hour fair value gap that was laid at the end of the day here. So if we put that on our chart as a bearish fair value gap, right? If we hit that order block and then we don't come back up and clear this bearish fair value gap, okay, and we find that it looks like the trade's breaking down up inside of that, I'll exit, I'll take the loss, right? It would be something like this. And then we'd be looking for price to come down, take that order block out, and maybe run on that additional sell side order block. So a lot's going to depend on what happens when we get to this order block here at 917, and if we just run up back into this fair value gap. Either way, I'm going to be watching these very closely to see if I need to exit my NVIDIA call or not. Taking a look at Meta, same thing. End of day sell-off below the 20 period, inverted this fair value gap. This does not look good for Meta. if I was trading Meta, which I'm not currently, I'd be looking for us to bounce back up into the fair value gap inversion. We got the 20 period coming down, and then I'm targeting the order block down here at 485. Okay. At that point in time, you can see it's held a support multiple times down in this range. I would expect it to potentially hold a support again. If we look at a bigger time frame, you can see lower highs, right? So who knows? We could end up going for lower lows. At this point in time, I would be short on Meta, but I would not be looking to short right as we sit. If we look at the RSI, you can see we are clearly oversold. So I would be looking for that pop back up to the 20 period moving average. Something to be mindful of is that we do have a bit of like consolidation and support in this range here. And so likely again that we find a bounce, right, back up into this fair value gap inversion. At that point in time, if we got the consequent encroachment like 500, 502, somewhere in that range, I'd be looking to take the short, and this is what the setup would look like. Okay, short inside the inversion, closing back at the upper boundary of the inverted fair value gap, looking for a minimum of a 2-to-1, which would only take us like back to the previous, basically the previous low from the bounce. But if we were targeting something deeper, we got basically a 6-to-1 if we're going to target that below order block with a pretty tight stop loss and a nice risk to reward ratio if we definitely dump back down. So I'd be looking for a good short entry on Meta. Looking at Apple, pop up the RSI. Apple's got divergence, setting lower lows with RSI divergence, bullish RSI divergence. Mostly what I'm looking on Apple here is this small, very small, bearish fair value gap. And if we break above it, we will invert it. Okay. And then I'd be looking for price to come back down into it. There'd be your long entry. And I'd be looking to target any of these previous highs. Okay. You want to take the low hanging fruit trade. Let's take a look at what that would look like. Say we enter in the return to the inversion. Okay. And we take the lowest high there and we look at, a 2-to-1. We could run that trade all the way down to basically a previous low. And we could run it up at this first wick. It'd be a nice little trade. If you wanted to try to run it in a deeper way, the reward becomes much greater. You can extend your stop loss down a little bit further for a appropriate RVR, especially if you're trading shares. Or you can keep it real tight within the boundaries of that fair value gap. And even the low hanging fruit trade is a 9-to-1, right? Or a 12.5-to-1, or a basically 20-to-1. So depending on how you want to run your stops, nice trade potential setting up in Apple. Now, if that doesn't happen and we don't find that we invert that fair value gap and we just find rejection here, we'd just be looking to come back down, take a new low, find support somewhere. But again, the RSI does support that we'll see some kind of relief bounce. If we dropped, there is all kinds of stuff. That gap's been filled. So we got sell side liquidity. We got sell side liquidity all the way down to 167.90. But again, don't necessarily think that's going to happen because the higher time frame here is supportive of some kind of bounce. Last, we're going to look at AMD. Took a nice trade on AMD today. If you ran it the way the trade was set up in the Discord, you definitely could have got stopped out if you chose to take the stop where it was at. But we had a nice bounce up. I think it's on a shorter time frame. Let's take a look at that for those of you who were following. We'll look at the 5-minute. And we got today's chart. So we took the trade down here, popped it up, right? Got a 20% close. If you took the close before we dropped back down, ultimately we ran the lows out, which is where you would have got stopped out before it ended up ripping face. Now I ended up averaging into this trade, closed it way too early before the whole rip happened, but I ended up closing about a $500 profit in that trade. At that point in time, we just kind of faded into the rest of the day. Let's jump back to the 1-hour chart on AMD and see what we're seeing as far as potential for a move in any direction. So we got our order block down here. You can see we definitely had some divergence setting up down here with a lower low. Now we've popped back up. Let's see what that fib level tells us off the bottom to the top. We got back down right to our golden pocket or our optimal trade entry level, and we found support. So basically what I'm looking for on AMD is I am looking for to see if price gets back up above this 20 period, maybe comes back down and back tests it, and then I'm looking for any of these fib extensions, 182, 185, 189, 193, all the way back up to 200. So we'll see what happens, but really going to be watching that 20 period on the 1 hour, see if we can get back above it. Right now it's currently facing down. If we find a rejection in that 20 period, because we are RSI, basically RSI neutral, if we pop up and hit that 20 period, find rejection, we're heading to a new low below 172. So be watching that 1 hour 20 period moving average pretty closely. It's also corresponds with a bearish fair value gap that's here on the 1 hour chart as well. And then if we did take the short, we'd be looking for it to dump down maybe over the course of maybe 1 to 2 weeks down to 164. But this is a pretty aggressive sell-off. You can see buy side of the curve, sell side of the curve. Haven't ended up taking the full sell side yet, as we've found support kind of, if you look at this bit of support and consolidation range, you can see there's a lot of support in this level. So definitely expecting us to continue to find support, rally up here. So possible, good. We're still down right around equilibrium. So, fairly good potential to grab at least a 1-to-1 RVR, if not higher, if you were to take the long entry here with kind of this previous low or this consolidation range as your stop loss area. Now, obviously, on options, it's going to be more risky. If you're trading shares, going to be less loss potential there because it's still, about a $6 move down to the previous low. So not an amazing RVR, but if you're also targeting some of these higher highs, some of these extension levels, then that RVR becomes much better. But you definitely want to be looking also at multiple weeks out as we are approaching kind of the middle of the week here. So that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully it's been helpful. Don't forget to check out the description below. Links to the Raw Stocks Trading Discord, links to the social medias, other ways you can support the channel. And I'll see you guys in the trading rooms and on the videos in the future.